What does it feel like to stare at a digital progress bar at your kitchen counter, expecting to restore some old family vacation pictures, only to watch a forensic data recovery program reassemble deleted image sectors that reveal your husband and your closest maternal cousin were conducting a secret relationship in your bedroom while you were vomiting blood in a sterile oncology ward? It doesn't begin with a chaotic, screaming Hollywood meltdown. It begins with the absolute silence of a hard drive clicking as it retrieves wiped unallocated clusters, and the chilling, freezing realization that the two people you trusted to guard your young children while you thought stage 3 cancer had converted your life-threatening isolation into a calculated domestic playground. I didn't lose my breath, I didn't drop my coffee, and I didn't shed a single tear onto the keyboard. I simply watched the timestamps on those recovered files match the exact days I was sedated under heavy chemical infusions, organized a comprehensive civil fraud brief with my corporate attorneys, and executed a quiet, systematic legal liquidation that would leave my husband completely penniless and erase both of them from my lineage forever. Let me show you how a woman who looked death in the eyes and won can stand in a luxury Texas estate and execute a total asset forfeiture without ever raising her pitch. My name is Madison. I am 34 years old. If you saw me managing the corporate risk compliance data and commercial asset portfolios behind the dual monitors at a prominent financial consultancy firm in the downtown district of Austin, Texas, you would see a highly precise, completely methodical woman. I have striking, rich, honey chestnut hair that I keep styled in a clean, elegant shoulder-length cut, deep, steel gray eyes that have spent a decade auditing complex system anomalies, and a life measured entirely by the unyielding laws of data verification and structural documentation. I didn't inhabit a disorganized world where things happened by accident or emotional impulse. My home was a custom-designed contemporary minimalist villa located in a quiet, upscale suburban sector of the Austin Hills, a space built on 8 years of absolute, simple devotion and a rigid lifestyle pattern that I believed was completely secure. I managed the household accounts, monitored our network firewalls, and organized our investments with the exact mathematical precision I used to protect corporate clients from internal fraud. I believed that this transparent routine was a total shield against the world. My husband, Julian, was 35. He was a senior commercial asset manager at a boutique investment firm, a man whose charm was smooth, calculated, and immensely effective with high net worth developers. He was broad-shouldered, with a wardrobe full of premium tailored clothes, dark hair that he kept perfectly groomed for high-end corporate dinners, and a confident, easy laugh that made him highly popular at the suburban country clubs. He was the model of a fiercely dedicated, supportive provider. He spent his weekends reviewing property development logs, he never missed an anniversary dinner, and he returned to our villa every evening with a tired but structured smile, kissing my forehead before reviewing our weekly investment balances. He always positioned himself as the primary protector of our future equity, constantly reminding me that his grueling navigation of commercial real estate parameters was the only mechanism expanding our lifestyle. I trusted that sharp professional pride implicitly. He wasn't a reckless gambler. He was a man who lived by legal timelines and market data, and I believed that a man whose entire career depended on strict regulatory compliance couldn't possibly possess the chaotic, reckless cruelty required to forge an alternative lifestyle inside his own home. I offered him an absolute, unvarnished loyalty, completely unaware that the proud man managing our joint accounts was using our systematic routine to camouflage my total liquidation of my emotional stability. The second parameter in this lifestyle matrix was my maternal cousin, Amanda. Amanda was 32, a sleek, calculating woman who managed the digital marketing accounts for our extended family's local commercial real estate investments. She was my closest childhood relative, the woman who had grown up in the neighboring estate, shared my university milestones, and stood as the primary maid of honor at my wedding. She managed her life with a superficial, overly attentive sweetness directed toward our elderly relatives, positioning herself as the ultimate family confidant. When the medical director at the Austin Oncology Center informed us that my routine physical had revealed an aggressive stage 3 malignant mass requiring immediate high-dose chemotherapy and strict clinical isolation, my world didn't collapse into panic. I analyzed the crisis like a data deviation, establishing a precise operational plan to protect my children and maintain our household logistics. Because the heavy chemical treatments would leave me incapacitated for weeks inside the sterile wing, I made the calculated decision to invite the only relative who knew our family systems to move into our guest suite, Amanda. I viewed her as a biological extension of my own identity, a sister in survival who would shield my children from the terrifying reality of their mother's illness. I remember sitting in my hospital bed during my first 5-day infusion cycle, watching a video Amanda sent of my children laughing in our backyard, and feeling a deep sense of psychological peace. I had no idea that while she was sending me supportive text messages, she was actively utilizing my clinical isolation to occupy my marriage, my house, and my master bedroom. They treated my fight for survival as a convenient administrative window to liquidate my existence. Trust inside an extended family network during a terminal medical crisis is the most dangerous vulnerability a woman can possess because she assumes ancestral blood acts as a permanent moral shield against malice. When you are fighting for your life inside a sterile oncology ward, your brain automatically categorizes your cousin's presence as safe, leaving you entirely unprotected against a systematic deception. Have you ever realized that the relative you brought in to guard your children was quietly auditing your medical charts to see how much time they had left? Tell me your experience below. The physical recovery of my health required 12 months of grueling, unyielding compliance with the oncology center's clinical protocols. I looked death directly in the eyes during those dark winter cycles, losing my hair, my physical strength, and my weight. But my brain never lost its analytical precision. By the spring of the following year, the medical director confirmed that my biological metrics had successfully returned to a status of complete remission. The malignant mass was gone, my body had survived the chemical fire, and I returned to my executive desk at the firm with a sharpened, predatory focus. Amanda moved out of our guest suite 3 weeks after my final clearance, receiving a generous financial loan from Julian as a thank you for her family support. The domestic routine settled back into its standard track, but the psychological atmosphere inside the glass villa began to display minor erratic anomalies that did not align with a standard recovery. The turning point materialized on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was working from my home study, preparing to clear out the old digital creative archives on our shared household desktop computer, a high-capacity system that Julian and I had used for years to store family records, real estate designs, and tax files. The hard drive was running sluggishly, indicating a heavy data volume in the system cache. I initiated a deep scan of the unallocated drive space, intending to permanently wipe the old deleted junk files to optimize the processing speeds. The progress bar buffered for 12 minutes, the mechanical hard drive clicking steadily beneath the desk. The system finished its scan, rendering a comprehensive list of recently deleted data sectors that had not yet been overwritten by the operating system. My eyes fixed on a massive cluster of deleted JPEG image files that had been wiped from a hidden folder 3 weeks prior, the exact weekend Amanda was packing her luggage to exit the property. I selected the cluster and executed a sector restoration protocol. The software reassembled the corrupted data blocks, and within 30 seconds, a series of high-resolution, time-stamped photographs rendered across my dual monitors. It wasn't an archive of family vacations or children's birthdays. It was a digital, unvarnished timeline of a complete domestic treason. The photographs were explicit, high-definition captures taken inside my own master bedroom, utilizing the premium digital camera Julian had purchased for our anniversary. The metadata attached to the files revealed the terrifying mathematical truth. The image files had been captured on the exact dates of my heaviest chemotherapy cycles. On November 14, while I was trapped in a sterile isolation unit under a 3-day continuous infusion, the camera recorded Julian and Amanda celebrating in our private hot tub. On January 22, the day my white blood cell count dropped to a critical minimum, the metadata showed them occupying my bed. A woman who has looked death in the face during a stage 3 cancer diagnosis does not flinch at the sight of two small-time thieves. I connected a secure external drive, transferred the entire recovered image cluster along with the unedited metadata validation logs into an encrypted folder, and synchronized it directly to my law firm's secure cloud backup. I closed the data recovery software, walked out of the study, and contacted our firm's senior asset protection attorney before Julian even returned from his corporate shift downtown. The data was complete. The transaction was irreversible. I didn't pack his clothes into trash bags, and I didn't change the locks to our contemporary villa that evening. I sat across from Julian at the kitchen island during dinner, watching him talk about his real estate transactions, offering him a calm, steady smile while my brain mathematically mapped out his total financial liquidation. He believed his gaslighting had been a total success, completely unaware that his entire lifestyle had already been filed as a fraudulent entry in a state legal database. Over the next 48 hours, I executed a silent, aggressive financial insulation strategy. Utilizing my credentials as the co-primary administrator of our corporate consulting trust, I downloaded every single banking ledger, every tax filing, and every real estate option contract we had synchronized over 8 years. I discovered that Julian had used our joint family savings accounts to finance a secret commercial property option for Amanda's digital marketing business, listing our personal estate as the primary collateral without my explicit signature on the secondary validation lines. I compiled the recovered photographs, the certified metadata logs, the historical network timestamps, and the unauthorized bank transfers into a comprehensive civil fraud brief. I forwarded the entire package directly to the senior managing partners of the top corporate asset dissolution firm in Austin and the state licensing board for real estate compliance. By Monday morning, the divorce petition was formalized. It wasn't a standard no-fault request. It was an aggressive asset liquidation brief based on civil fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and grand concealment of household assets. I executed immediate court-ordered emergency freezing injunctions on every joint asset account, every corporate vehicle title, and the primary deed to our contemporary villa. The final execution was scheduled for Tuesday afternoon, not in a private living room, but inside the main corporate boardroom of Julian's investment firm downtown. He had called an emergency meeting of his primary stakeholders and local developers to review a sudden, unexpected compliance freeze that had hit their accounts that morning. They believed it was a bank system error, a data glitch that could be cleared with a standard administrative call. They had no idea that I had designed the freeze myself to trap both Julian and Amanda in the same room. The corporate boardroom was illuminated by the sharp, white glare of the recessed ceiling lights. The polished mahogany table was clean, reflecting the skyscrapers of downtown Austin through the panoramic glass windows. The 10 stakeholders and developers turned their heads simultaneously as the double glass doors swung open. I walked into the executive space at 2 p.m. sharp, precisely as the meeting was initialized. I wasn't wearing an office suit or a rigid uniform. I walked through the doors wearing an exceptionally attractive, gorgeous, deep plum silk midi sundress with a delicate flowing skirt and an elegant neckline that caught the ambient track lighting beautifully. It was a stunning, sophisticated dress designed for a high-end social setting, making me look radiant, completely independent, and effortlessly beautiful. My honey chestnut hair fell in soft, natural waves down my shoulders, and my steel blue eyes held a terrifying, razor-sharp clarity. But the most striking transformation was not the plum silk dress. It was the expression on my face. My lips were turned upward into a powerful, quiet, slight smile of absolute victory, a calm, knowing Zafir Tebessumi that held no anger, no malice, and no remaining sorrow. It was the smile of an expert auditor who had tracked the anomaly, executed the protocol, and won every single piece of the board. Julian's smooth, professional smile completely vanished. His knuckles turned white against his leather folder, a sudden, primal terror flashing across his face as he saw me walking slowly toward the head of the table, holding a stack of certified legal briefs in my hand. "Amanda, what is the meaning of this disruption?" Julian asked, his voice cracking slightly as he attempted to maintain his dominant executive tone. "This is a private corporate board meeting regarding an asset freeze. You don't have authorization to disrupt this session." "I am the sole authorization remaining on this account, Julian," I said, my voice perfectly flat, carrying a cold, resonant echo that completely killed the ambient hum of the building's climate control. "I'm here to deliver the final quarterly performance audit on this partnership. Amanda, your digital marketing contracts with this firm have just been permanently liquidated." Amanda, who had been sitting near the window holding her tablet, stood up from her leather chair. Her face turned an absolute chalky white when she recognized the raw printouts of the recovered bedroom photographs extending from the open folder. She tried to step toward the exit doors, but her hands were trembling so violently she dropped her design portfolio, the sheets scattering against the polished floorboards like debris. The most effective retribution is executed when you walk directly into the center of the trader's commercial fortress, completely transforming their corporate meeting into a public execution room. Julian and Amanda thought they were managing a banking glitch, entirely oblivious to the fact that the state compliance brief was already in my hand. Have you ever had to act perfectly composed while preparing to split a lifestyle completely down the middle? Tell me your story below. The corporate boardroom remained in a freezing, breathless vacuum as I placed the heavy legal folders directly onto the wood surface between Julian's hands and his lead developer's contracts. "Madison, please, this is a private family matter. We can talk about this at the house," Julian's father stammered, his voice shaking with panic as he read the words civil fraud and asset forgery on the front page of the legal brief. "You're going to destroy his career name across the entire city." The name was destroyed the moment your son converted our master bedroom into a location for identity theft and domestic treason while I was vomiting blood in an oncology unit.
You spent 2 years laughing at my data checks while you executed your operations behind my back. My hard drive has just output your reality." Julian lunged forward across the table, his face twisted in a narcissistic, desperate rage, his hand rising to grab the edge of my silk dress. "You crazy bitch, you audited our entire life because of a data recovery scan?"
Before his fingers could make contact with the fabric, the heavy glass doors of the boardroom swung open. 2 county commercial fraud investigators and a senior corporate compliance deputy stepped into the room. They had been waiting for the signal. They handed Julian the immediate court-ordered corporate suspension notices and the asset freeze mandates, which stripped him of his managing director privileges under the primary trust deed funded by my firm's original investment capital. "Mr. Vance," the fraud investigator said, his voice carrying the flat, unyielding authority of Texas commercial law, "you and this associate are under immediate civil injunction for asset manipulation and trust forgery. Your corporate access codes are deactivated effective immediately." The litigation dragged through 6 months of intense forensic discovery, but the outcome was mathematical. Under the strict parameters of Texas commercial and family codes regarding the intentional dissipation of community property for a non-marital relationship, the judge executed an absolute, total asset forfeiture. Every single asset, the multi-million-dollar contemporary villa in the hills, the joint corporate investment portfolios, the liquid cash reserves, and the residual rights to our consulting trust were awarded entirely to me. Julian was left with nothing but his clothing and a massive debt obligation to cover my firm's legal fees. He was left completely penniless in the middle of the city. The collateral damage hit Amanda's household with the exact same unyielding force. On the 3rd week of our discovery process, the state financial crimes investigators shared the verified forgery data with Amanda's husband, a prominent local corporate developer named Thomas. Thomas didn't waste a single hour on emotional negotiations. The moment his legal counsel cross-referenced the file timestamps and the forged land options that Julian had attached to her marketing company's credit lines, he initialized a secondary parallel dissolution lawsuit in the neighboring county court. He frozen her corporate business lines, pulled his family trust's capital out of her agency, and secured a total divorce decree that stripped her of her residential rights to their suburban property. 2 separate empires of family success were entirely flattened by the data string retrieved from a single wiped drive cluster block. I completely erased them from my lineage, deleting their names from our family records with the exact same finality I used to wipe corrupted files. The landscape of my world has been completely reorganized since that Tuesday afternoon inside the executive suite. I didn't stay in Austin to listen to their mutual excuses or navigate the emotional wreckage of a broken extended family. I utilized the absolute clarity of the financial fraud logs and the total divorce settlement to permanently relocate my consulting operations to another state, ensuring that no member of my past could ever breach my professional perimeter again. The corporate assets were secured entirely under my name, and my physical health remains in a status of absolute, unshakable strength. Julian and Amanda tried to maintain their business connection after the scandal, but a partnership built on the theft of a dying relative's trust cannot survive the cold reality of a public bankruptcy listing. According to rare updates from distant legal contacts, their life is a constant, suffocating prison of mutual paranoia. Julian was terminated from every major development project in the state, and he currently works an entry-level position at a local commercial scrapyard. Amanda lives in a cramped rental near the state line, her social circle permanently destroyed by the family blacklisting. I kept my position, my firm capital, and my children. I was promoted to the managing vice president of our firm's International Forensic Compliance Division, using my expanded resources to establish a private legal defense network that helps women secure their personal titles and corporate assets during long-term medical recoveries. I became the sole architect of my own security. The true resolution materialized not in a courtroom, but on the sun-drenched terrace of my new penthouse apartment overlooking the coastal waters of Miami. It was a bright, pristine morning, the saltwater breeze moving the curtains of the open deck. I was sitting in an outdoor lounge chair, drinking an iced green tea, reviewing our department's quarterly global compliance expansions on my tablet, completely at peace. My personal device buzzed with an incoming encrypted notification from an unlisted international domain. It was an email from Julian. Madison, the message read, the syntax thin, cracked, and completely stripped of his former executive arrogance. My parents won't even look at me at Christmas, and because of the fraud record from the Austin board, I can't get a commercial loan anywhere in this country. Amanda left for the border last month after the bank took the vehicles. You completely erased my entire life. Was it really worth destroying an entire family just for a few restored pictures on an old desktop hard drive? I leaned back against the plush cushions of my lounge chair, looking out at the glittering yachts moving across the open water, my powerful victory smile deepening as I placed my fingers onto the digital screen.
I didn't finish your life, Julian, I typed back, my fingers moving with the flat, unhurried precision of a tactical system report. I simply allowed the commercial system to output the exact reality of the data you chose to enter into my master bedroom while I was fighting for my survival. You chose to sign a digital contract of your own betrayal. Enjoy the final compilation of your choices. I hit send, deleted the string from the server cache, and permanently blocked the domain. He remains inside his self-built cage, his name just an erased entry in my future compliance logs. The past is a secured perimeter, and my home finally stands on its own unshakable foundation. Do you know why I am telling you this story from the edge of this open water today? Because the predators and deceivers of this world want you to believe that if you are a regular, structured person who focuses on your data and trusts your family, you are too weak to defend your own life. They think that because you are quiet, because you ignore their small slights while fighting through a medical crisis, you must be blind to their large conspiracies. They believe that a gas-lidded heart will always collapse into useless tears. But they do not understand the absolute, unalterable laws of patience and documentation. Your life does not belong to the people who try to manipulate your absence using your own bloodline, and you don't need a loud screaming match, a public scene, or a chaotic confrontation to execute absolute justice. You just need the cold, silent discipline to collect the data, secure the evidence, and wait for the exact moment to let their own greed pull the trigger on their existence. Julian and Amanda thought they could steal my sanctuary because I was an isolated patient behind an oncology curtain. They forgot the most basic rule of the system backups. The woman who manages the files always knows exactly how to liquidate the assets. I am Madison. The audit is finalized. The asset is secured, and my path finally stands on its own unshakable foundation. Now I have a final question for you, the person listening to my voice in the quiet of your own room tonight. If you discovered your husband and your closest cousin were utilizing your chemotherapy isolation to conduct a secret affair right inside your bedroom, would you lose your temper and scream at them in the kitchen, or would you wait patiently for a data recovery scan to freeze their entire corporate asset structure and watch them get removed by investigators in front of their own board partners? Tell me your strategy in the comments below. I am analyzing your logic.